Hello, Raiders viewers. Welcome to another edition of our Raiders News. This is your fanatical screenwriter, the crazy guy who never loses a battle on or off the field, always with his black and silver heart beating strong. Come on, Raider Nation, because today we're going to talk seriously. We're going to explore a bombshell revelation that's shaking up the foundations of our beloved team's defense. And if you're one of those who thought the season was already complicated enough, hold on tight, because this storyline will bring even more adrenaline to the Raiders saga in 2024. Here's the deal. Maxx Crosby, our defensive wall, and one of the most durable and tireless players to ever grace the field, suddenly appeared on this week's injury report. And you know, when his name pops up on any injury list, Raider Nation holds its breath. After all, the man is practically a steel robot, accustomed to playing nearly every snap without losing a breath. But before we get into this dense subject, let me give you that teaser we love. Could the immediate future of our defense take a turn that no one expected? And how could this situation change the outcome of the season, which was already looking like a roller coaster? Stay here and come with me, because the story is good and the impact could be big. If there's one thing we've learned from rooting for the Raiders for years, it's that big things can happen when we least expect it. So, sit down, because now comes the hot part of the Raiders news. We're going to dissect this medical report, see what the coaching staff is saying or not saying, and speculate what the implications are for our already severely weakened roster. And that's just the beginning. We have 5 sections of pure Raider storytelling, and after that we'll simplify the language so that everyone can understand it better, including the kids who enjoy watching the Pirate team play on Sundays. So get the popcorn ready and come on this journey with me, because we're just getting started. We know that Maxx Crosby is the embodiment of grit and determination on the field. He's always there, making tackles on quarterbacks and facing any offensive line without showing the slightest bit of fatigue. The guy, since he arrived, has won our hearts because he's tough, loves the game, and works hard. It's no coincidence that he quickly became a cornerstone, a fundamental piece for any defensive scheme. So imagine the shock when, in the middle of the week, that injury report showing his name appeared. It was there, firm and clear. Maxx Crosby did not train due to unspecified pain. And that's it. The fire started to ignite on social media. People started to speculate. Could it have been some hidden blow in the last game? Or could it be a problem of accumulated fatigue? And one thing is for sure. Crosby showed no signs of injury in the previous game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. On the contrary, he played from start to finish. What makes this climate of tension even more intense is the team's silence. The Raiders' medical staff is very tight-lipped, not letting much out. Interim coach Antonio Pierce, who is doing everything he can to maintain the team's competitiveness, hasn't revealed much either. At every press conference, it seems like the standard answer is, "We're evaluating it. Let's see how he feels in the next few days." But Raider Nation is not stupid. We know behind the scenes. There are rumors that it could be something more serious than it seems. When a player of Crosby's stature doesn't step onto the training field, even if it's for limited practice, it's a total warning sign. And we're not talking about any moment of the season. It's a decisive phase in which we still dream of fighting for something, even if it's just to keep the team's morale high and maybe pinch a spot in the playoffs. It is worth remembering that rumors point to pain in the knee or shoulder, but nothing has been officially confirmed yet. First of all, Crosby is the kind of guy who, if he can play, he will. That's Max's DNA. He doesn't give up. He doesn't give up easily. So if he's being rested, even without direct contact, it's because something more delicate might be going on behind the scenes. And that makes us wonder, if the worst happens and he has to sit out for a longer period of time, how will our defense cope without him? We know that Christian Wilkins and Malcolm Kuhn are also on the injured list, and the depth of our roster is increasingly shallow. The question remains, will the defense be able to hold its own without Crosby? For those who are just arriving and don't know the situation well, here's some context. In the last few games, Crosby was essential in putting pressure on the opposing quarterback. If he leaves the game, we lose not only a leader on the field, but also that blaze of energy that infects the rest of the team. And at a time when the defense was finally showing some brilliance, imagine losing its main cog? That's the thing everyone is wondering about. There's no way to talk about this situation without mentioning how essential Max Crosby is to the current scheme. The guy does it all. He pressures the quarterback, stops the ground game, deflects passes, and still finds time to cheer up his teammates. He's the personification of that mentality. Nobody respects us, but we're going to earn their respect by force. The Raiders have always been synonymous with attitude, and Crosby embodies that on the field. Now, without him, the defensive system could be quite weak. Even if he only misses a few practices, it's worth remembering that every rep makes a difference. If he's away from the field for a long time, the coaching staff will need to move players around and adjust the pass rush to try to make up for his absence. This means that other players, perhaps less experienced, will have to fill this huge space. The problem is that we're already at our limit. The team has been facing constant losses on the defensive line and also in the linebacker core. We lost Christian Wilkins and Malcolm Kuhn, who were important players in the scheme. Thinking about a front without these guys and possibly without Crosby is almost a tragedy waiting to happen. Not that I'm being pessimistic, but realistic. The NFL is cruel, my friends. When you lose 3 or 4 starters on defense, the hole gets bigger. The opponent takes advantage of this space and attacks through the gaps. The opposing offense smells blood in the water. And remember, we'll soon have some tough games against division rivals like the Kansas City Chiefs, our big rivals who have been leading the AFC West in recent years. Can you imagine facing Patrick Mahomes without Max Crosby on the field, without his aggressiveness to try to sack him or force turnovers? It's complicated, and look, they have videos, stats, and Mahomes highlights to show that the guy is practically unstoppable when he has time in the pocket. So, without Crosby, who's going to put the pressure on? It could be a really tough blow to our hopes of competing. Not to mention that we are also watching the Chargers rise and the Denver Broncos trying to find their feet. The divisional dispute does not allow for any slip-ups. Every game counts. Every snap is decisive. Crosby's absence could be costly and, ultimately, even reflect on future scenarios. We know that the Raiders' offseason is promising, with the possibility of restructuring, new signings, draft picks, etc. But everything depends on what we present in this final stretch of the season. It is the acid test that will determine what the front office will plan. When the team is in this delicate situation, with a suspected injury to the main defensive player, in addition to other absences, interim coach Antonio Pierce carries a piano on his back. The guy took over recently after the front office decided to change the technical command in one fell swoop. So he came in with the task of bringing order to the house, restoring the players' morale, rethinking the playbook, and trying to make the team compete. Pierce, who played linebacker in the NFL for years, understands the importance of a solid defensive line. He knows that without pressure on the opposing quarterback, the secondary is exposed and the entire defensive system becomes a house of cards. So how will he deal with that? We could see some interesting moves. Maybe he promotes someone from the practice squad, gives more snaps to rookies, or even changes the style of defense. A more blitz-based system, or something that tries to compensate for Crosby's absence. But losing Crosby at a time when the team was just starting to evolve after so many recent changes is heartbreaking. And it's not just because of his physical or technical ability, but also because of his leadership on the field. Crosby is the kind of guy who pulls everyone up. You see him roaring in the huddle, celebrating every tackle, getting the crowd excited. This has a huge impact on the team's dynamics. The challenge for Pierce is not only to find tactical solutions, but also to maintain the group's confidence. We don't want the locker room to lose its shine. We don't want the players to go onto the field with their heads down. It's part of the Raider DNA to believe until the end. And if there's one thing we really hope for, it's to see this determination emerge on the field, regardless of the circumstances. However, of course, we know that there's a limit to everything, and losing the main pillar of the defense could be the final blow to a team that's already struggling to find its way. The NFL season is short, but the toll is long. Every game is a battle, and every win or loss can define the fate of an entire franchise. If Crosby really can't play for a significant period of time, what will happen to us for the rest of the year? For starters, the fight for the playoffs is even tougher. Even if the mathematical odds aren't that generous, Everyone who plays in the NFL goes out on the field to win. And in the case of the Raiders, there's enormous pressure to show improvement, especially after the dismissals on the coaching staff and the change in head coach. The franchise wants to prove that it's alive, that it has potential, and that the change wasn't for nothing. Losing Crosby probably means fewer sacks, fewer tackles for loss, and less defensive energy. It also means that the opposing offense can dictate the pace of the game more easily, controlling possession and tiring out our offense. At the end of the day, the impact on the scoreboard could be painful. Furthermore, Crosby's absence could accelerate discussions about restructuring the roster for next season. The board could start testing younger players, planning for the future. Can so-and-so hold down this position? Does so-and-so deserve a bigger contract? Is it time to draft a new pass rusher? And yes, all of this involves the decision of whether or not to rest Crosby if there is a risk of aggravating the injury. After all, if it is something serious, they have to take care of the guy who is one of the central pieces of the franchise. Raider Nation, do you remember the Derek Carr soap opera when we were in a state of flux and didn't know whether or not the quarterback would stay on the team the following year? Well, now the soap opera revolves around Crosby's health and the direction of the defense. We need to stay tuned to the Raiders news and any updates that may appear on the web about this situation. If there's one thing that unites us, it's our love for the Raiders. We've been through every phase, every storm, and we've still stood tall, wearing the black and silver with pride. This moment of uncertainty involving Max Crosby just shows how dynamic and unpredictable the NFL is. The future is a question mark, but the present demands blood in our eyes. We need players who take responsibility. We need the new coaching staff to find solutions. We need Raider Nation to stand together. Amidst all this, there is a possible light at the end of the tunnel. Crosby has not been officially ruled out of any games yet. It could be a one-off, minor injury, and he could be back soon. But until we have confirmation, we are left in suspense. And that is where the fans' favorite sport comes in. Speculation. We hope the worst doesn't happen, but it is inevitable to think of complicated scenarios. Now, it's worth noting that there are also potential reinforcements that could help ease Crosby's absence, should he need to sit out. Players who were injured could return, and people from the practice squad could have the opportunity to show their worth. There's always an unknown player who comes in and ends up becoming an unlikely hero. It would be great to see a diamond in the rough come off the bench and contribute to the pass rush, keeping alive the dream that there's still time to turn the game around in this final stretch. Anything can happen in the NFL. It's the league of the unexpected, where heroes are born in the blink of an eye. And within this possible turnaround, we can't forget the general context. The AFC West is extremely complicated, full of powerful rivals. The Chiefs are our eternal rivals, always coming in strong and driven by Patrick Mahomes' impressive statistics. It wouldn't hurt for Pierce to prepare some special blitz scheme, mixing veterans and rookies, trying to surprise the biggest rival of the moment. Imagine holding off Kansas City's attack even without Crosby, showing the world that Raider Nation never dies. It would be epic. That's why the season continues as long as there's a chance. The final message of this Section 5 is the essence of what it means to be a Raiders fan. We don't abandon ship. We keep believing, we keep shouting, even in the face of adversity. And Max Crosby is the epitome of that. He made overcoming obstacles his trademark, and we can even be inspired by him to keep cheering, believing in the improbable.